Hi guys, this is Steve. I'm here with a Mirror Maze tutorial to show you how to slice up a piece of fruit. Um, Nothing better to do on a Friday night. Slice up some fruit. Here's an example that I did real quick. Actually, let me pull up my QuickTime here. So this is just an orange slice. So just an overview here. Basically a bowl with cutting out pieces of a sphere, and then those pieces, which are just basic rectangles cutting out of the sphere, are then put into a cloner and then controlled by a plane effector as well as a delay deformer to give it that bouncing movement toward the end. So let's just get in and get started here. Turn that. So we'll just start off by modeling, not really. We're just going to do a simple sphere and increase the subdivisions, maybe about 40. That should be smooth enough, and we're going to start off by just getting a quick texture on there. Now it's going to be pretty basic, but it will should look similar to an orange in a way here. So just add an orange color to it, and then we're going to go over to the bump channel, and we're going to be using a combination of 3 different layers, a couple types of noise. So first we're going to add the finer noise, which you'd see on an orange, and that's, I found Displaced Veroni looks pretty decent at a smaller scale. About 30% seems to work fine. And then on top of that, we are going to add another noise as an overlay. So this is going to give the bump a little bit of variation so that it's not consistent throughout. And for this, I chose Naki, which seemed to work pretty well, just scaled up a little bit. So right now let's just apply that to our sphere and see what's going on. So that looks pretty decent. It's very basic, kind of spongy looking right now, but it's all right. So on top of that, I added a Fresnel, which helps soften the texture around the edges so that we don't get that kind of crispy look around the edge. So I believe it was set to something, let's see, we gotta reverse that. Whoop. And we also have to change the mode to add. We didn't have to reverse it. I forgot the blending mode. All right, there we go. So then it kind of falls off toward the edge, and we can adjust that as needed, but we probably want to bring it in just a little bit. So that's looking pretty decent, just real quick and dirty. And the next and last thing that we're going to do involving any texture is we're just going to copy this noise channel, and we're going to bring it over to the luminance channel just to kind of fill this in and give it a little bit of a glow. So we're going to do another layer and add a noise. And then if we just right click, we can go ahead and paste the channel. So we'll be getting the same noise. And actually, let's just grab the color value So we'll have, you know, just a few different variations of orange. So something lighter, something darker, just to kind of fill it in a little bit. And then on top of that, we're also going to add the same Fresnel. So we can either make a new one, which isn't a big deal, or we can just copy this and be super lazy. So we'll copy that. And Fresnel, just so we get the same kind of attributes. And all right, so we're going to just adjust this texture a little bit further, basically there. So we have the Fresnel at about 30%, and then the only other thing that I wanted to do is add a little bit of specular to give it some glow around the edges. So very stylized looking orange, but it will do. So the next thing we're going to do is put this inside of first a bool. So we can option click bool and it will make a sphere the child of it. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to cut something out of this sphere. So we're basically just going to use a cube to cut out that simple shape. So you can see right now that it's subtracting the cube. And the mode that we would want to do is intersect. So then we get that slice. And I think that thickness is probably, I mean, you can space up the thickness however you want. Trying to make this kind of quick. So we're gonna go with a little bit thicker of slices, but it's all the same. We'll, this can be applied to many different things, many different objects. I mean, the beauty really is that we can swap out this sphere with anything. It could be topography, which is my initial reason for starting up this tutorial, and I can just show you real quick an example of the topography that I created. But basically, so you have topo, and it could be derived from a more complex model. I just used the generic topo here, landscape in the Cinema 4D menu, but you could really use actual topography and then simplify that geometry with layers like this, which would be a really cool stylized effect. And you can add any type of effector on it. So right now you're seeing a plane and a delay, and also step effector, which is pretty sweet. So you can have it grow and do all different types of things. But anyway, let's get back to that orange. So we want, I don't know, let's see. We'll get down to the bottom. So start about there. So if you go into your front view, you can just make sure that your cube definitely has to be wide enough so that you're encompassing the whole sphere and a little bit more. And then from there you have your slice, and then we're gonna grab a cloner and option click. If you have your cube selected, make your cube a child of the cloner. And keep a note of the Y size of your cube, because you're going to want to apply that same distance to your cloner. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But if you want to have the orange appear whole at first, then that's something you should do. And just increase the amount of clones. So right now we have 6. I'd like to stick around with something like 6. So maybe let's do a cube size of 35. Just move that up. And then also change the cloner spacing to 35. So there. Now we have 6. And that's plenty, because we're going to have to do, a little bit of cleanup and some just some texturing. So we can add the inside, the juicy inside of that orange. So, yeah, so basically we have the texture that wraps around it. We have all of our divisions that we'd like to use. So the next thing we can do, we can totally collapse all this. Just select your bool, hit C to make it all editable. And so we'll see now that we have 0 through 5, so our 6 different pieces, and then we have the sphere. And if you solo, you can see that right now we have only planes for 0, 1. So you can just see the top and bottom of those. Actually, one thing that if we just go back, just to kind of simplify things, I think it's also a good idea. Maybe not for this. It's possibly not even a big deal. But before we jump into that, I just would like to turn off the bool. Just make this cube editable. So take note of its Y size. We have 35. And I just want to make a selection for the top. And a selection for the bottom. So deselect everything. And then, we got to select our bottom. So this is kind of planning ahead to make it a little bit easier to add textures down the road, just by the quick click to get your texture on there. And we can call this bottom. So that way you don't have to go selecting polygons, because this bool is going to break up your polygon and divide it a little bit, so it could be a little bit messy. So that way at least we have the top and bottom selections for the cube. Now if we go ahead and make the bool, here we go. Editable. Let's just, we lost, what did we do here? Cube, let's solo that. No, we have the cube cloner. So something's going on here. Let's figure out there. Okay, so that's probably because the cloner got repositioned a little bit. Freaked me out, but it's okay. All right, and it looks like our cube needs to be just a little bit wider because we're seeing that break there. There. All right, I think. All right, I'm back. Sorry, I had to investigate that weird little spacing issue, but apparently my move tool was selected while I was selecting these polygons, so that's what happened. So make sure that move isn't selected when you're selecting, and then you'll be all set. So again, I'm just gonna set the top real quickly and set the bottom. Boom. Bottom. All right, I think we're all good now, so let's just see what those look like. And boom, we have everything all set. All right, now we're in business. So let's make that editable. And so now you can see, again, we have our simple pieces. And what we're going to do is basically add this sphere geometry to these small pieces and connect the objects and delete them so that we get our thick slices. Another way to do this would be to, in a super quick way, which we can get into maybe at the end of this if it's quick enough. You can basically, instead of using a rectangle with your bool, you can just use a plane, and then once we're at this stage, for the plane, you can add some thickness. Actually, let me just show you real quick. So say we have this cube piece here, and I'm just soloing it. So we could basically add a cloth nib to it, and then add a thickness, and I go negative value. So you can see that we can add thickness to all these pieces, and you would only have to add it to the top of the stack, and basically there you go. So that is a quick way. You don't have as much control over the cloth nib with texture. Well, you would if you made it editable and then made your selections that way. The thing is, this is going to extrude straight down, but the beauty of our situation is that we kept the round geometry of the orange. So now we're just going to go through and we're going to solo each one of these, and then we're going to connect our slices. So first we have, and you can see, and maybe there's a better way to go about this, maybe somebody knows, but you can basically just see the dividing line there. So if you select your cube, you can see the bluish line. So I'm going to go into point mode because that will help clean up everything as we delete it. If you go into polygon or line mode and delete, there's still going to be points out in space. We don't want that. So kind of take note at where your cube is, and then we're going to go and select and delete. And you want to make sure, Control Z, that only select visible elements is off. That way we can select everything and delete it. So let's just go back. Actually, let's solo this, go into a perspective view. So there's the bottom of our orange, and yeah, we're gonna get to texturing this piece in a minute here. So we're just gonna kind of run through and do this. And also real quick, I know a lot of you probably have it already, but if you don't, this solo button that I've been using is super helpful. You can get it at, I think it's Nitro 4D, so if we just Nitro 4D Magic Solo, just for those of you that don't have it, there it is. So just Google that, you can download it, it's free. Very awesome. This guy has a lot of really great tools, so check them all out. And that's unfortunately, I don't believe Cinema 4D has a built-in function for that. I know that you can go create various layers. So if we were to add this to a new layer, we can then solo it. So you can do that for, you'd have to set up a new layer for each one, which would be a little bit tedious, but it might help serve you organizationally for your project. But the layers manager has a lot of other great tools within it, so that's definitely something to explore. All right, so we have our first one. We're going to select these, and we're going to right-click, connect objects, and delete. So there we go. Now it's its own thing. And just another note, these will need to be welded together at some point if you're using a step effector, probably, because you may see some separation between the top and the outside geometry. So we can get into that if we run into that problem, and if not, then it's something to consider if you're running into trouble there. So F3 will give us our right view, and we're gonna kind of note where those lines are, and then you can kind of see them from this view too. And then just make sure you're not deleting your whole thing for some reason there. Okay, let's try it again. There we go. I was deleting my entire sphere. That was not good. All right, so there we need to take one more level off, and then I believe it's this far. So there we go. Yes. All right, so right click, select both of those, connect and delete. And to our next one. Kind of a therapeutic little process when you have a lot of these going on. It's real simple. That's why I only chose 6, because I didn't feel like sitting here all night. Although, you know, a lot of slices would look pretty cool, so maybe you guys should try that out. And I believe that I got it. Cool. So right click, connect and delete. 3 more to go. All right, so we have cube 3. Select your sphere, delete. Let's just solo that real quick. Oh yes, beautiful looking slice. All right, connect and delete. And solo this guy. And there we go. Get rid of that. And yeah, I mean, you could really use this for anything. Another thing that comes to mind is those old 3D puzzles. Those were kind of big when I was growing up. Probably a lot of you guys too. I never actually got one. I think my brother did, but they're pretty neat. So you could really create anything like that. You could have a model of a car, of a person's head, and you could really simplify that geometry and make some really cool stuff. There we go. That looks good. And delete. And then this one. The top of the orange. Now we didn't add that nice little leaf or the nub at the top, but I'll leave that to you guys. You can play around with your orange or whatever fruit you decide to make. Also, if you don't want to model your own fruit, there are some pretty decent looking models on TurboSquid. I found a pair, which would be pretty neat to use. A lemon would be cool. It'd also be cool to swap out. Whoops, got rid of too much there. It'd be cool to swap out some of these pieces with other pieces of fruit and stack them on top of each other, and its possibilities are endless. Alright, so now that we have that, we're going to pull all these out, get rid of these, do a little housekeeping, and select them all. Option click, didn't work. Okay, make those child of the cloner. So right now, cloner defaults at 3. Why aren't we seeing the rest of our orange? We need 6 slices here. So there we go. Spacing is funny, although it's kind of cool. So 35, that was our value. It would be whatever value you put there. So there we go. Now it's a nice enclosed, uneaten orange. So we'll get into texturing those slices if you are all interested. But first, getting a little antsy here, so I just want to add the plane effector in and start playing with things a little bit. And that's usually how I work. I kind of all over the place. It's not a necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes you have to go to the more interesting pieces and then get back to the important stuff. What's all important? So there, we have the plane effector. Let's see, did I change the fall off? I didn't, but I will change it to linear and just give it a gentle fall off of 100%. So we have a nice fall off, and rotate it 90 degrees. Bloom, bloom. So we can already see this is pretty sweet. You could really do a lot with it. You could add any amount of effectors to this in any order to do lots of things. It's just super powerful, pretty easy to set up, really. So anyway, so we have our plane there. That's working out. But that's pretty basic. I found, with a lot of cases that the delay effector is super helpful in creating pretty dynamic looking effects without adding dynamics, although you can add dynamics to this, and that's also a lot of fun and very cool. Just make sure your delay is at the bottom of the stack, because it's going to be the last thing that takes effect. All right, so, and if you make your timeline nice and long, I don't know, maybe like 300 keyframes. There, and then boom. So you can just kind of play around with it in real time, which is really fun. It's awesome. So, you can use this plane effector. You could add another one. So if we duplicate this, and let's just do it right now real quick. So rotate that. I lost my shift key there. No, I want you to go this way. There we go. All right. Or you know what? That was I still have to make it part of the cloner. Yeah, I mean I think the cooler one was probably the step effector, but that's adjusting the Y. We don't want that. If we're coming from the side, we want to throw it over into Z space. But yeah, right now it's just going to throw the whole orange. But if we have the step effector on there, it will, throw the slices, in a step-like fashion. Anyway, so that is the basic setup. And now if we quickly want to add the textures to each of these, I'll just turn off and solo these one by one so we can do that. And so basically I made a quick material in Illustrator. So basically just like, my windows are all thrown off because I made my screen monster size for everybody to see, good resolution. But anyway, here's my orange slice. So just a simple vector shape. You can actually find this exact one on vectz.com. They have a lot of cool free vector art. So just if you search fruit or orange slice or whatever, it will pop up, and you'll be able to find it. Or you could find whatever other slice if you're looking for this kind of stylized look. Or you could really go in and make a photoreal texture, however you want to approach it. But I wanted something more stylized. So anyway, I'm gonna make a texture, and I'm gonna import that to the luminance channel because I always want it to be light. So grab my PNG and bring it in, and then so that's when these selections or it looks like it went on there really nicely, or except for there. We're just going to do a cubic map, and we're going to stick it. Yes, that's our top. Stick it on the top. There. So now it's just on the top. It's looking good. So that's why we had those selections. I mean, you didn't necessarily need it for this one, but it's helpful. So then we're gonna solo that, and boom, boom, we have, let's see, I'll drag my material on there. I'll just drag it on all these. Why not? Control click, or control drag, and I'll solo. And so top, one on the top is cubic. And then I also want to control drag that and drag my bottom selection over there. So there we go. We have our selections. The bottom looks good. Not going to touch it. The top needs to be scaled up just a little bit. So we're just going to grab our texture over here and T, and just kind of generally scale the whole thing up. So it looks pretty decent. Looks pretty good. And we're going to do the same thing with our next one. So we have our top, drag it in, and just make a cubic projection and scale that up. And then we're going to control drag, and we're going to drop the bottom in there. So now if we go check out the bottom looks a little big. Shrink it down just a smidge, and we're golden. And solo number 3. Okay, so we're going to drag our top over there, turn this to cubic, adjust our top, boom, control drag, and drag our bottom in there, adjust the bottom. Alright, same deal here. So you can see why we kept the slices to a minimum. Although I am gonna, I think, go back and make a more detailed slice one as well. Lots of ideas with this thing. It's endless. So, okay, maybe you guys ran into this problem. Maybe you didn't. Hopefully yours is going super smooth and you didn't. But if you did, I'm missing the bottom of this slice. That doesn't happen. Oh boy. Although it looks like the line work is there. Let's see. Top. Let's. Oh, it was just because I didn't have my selection. Anyway, I was gonna say if that polygon was missing, we could quickly fill it in. MD close polygon hole. That would have done it. We don't have to worry about that, but that is a quick and easy way to fill in any holes. I mean, that is probably going to happen to one of you doing this just because when you're deleting all those points, that wouldn't be a surprise. So now we're just going to add this as cubic to the bottom, and it looks pretty good. All right, so now we have our orange. Let's check it out. Quick render. Oh, it looks pretty sweet. Let's just add a background. Want it to look kind of tropical and fun, so I added, like a sea foamy color to it. Just visited Nicaragua, so I'm my mind's still there. Yeah, that feels pretty good. So there we go. There's our orange. And Turn all these guys back on. And now if we hit play, we can play with our plane effector, and there are all of our slices. Whoa. So we could take a lower angle and check them out. And if those aren't spreading enough for you guys, go ahead and increase your plane Y value so that they do, so you can see them. And there you go. So that's essentially it. And again, you can add any effectors you want to it. If you want to add a rigid body, you can do that too. Just select them all, rigid body. So if you do that, they're all gonna fall right away together. Something you could do if you're playing around with effectors, you could increase the follow position, which will help it float a little bit. So that's basically just kind of like negative gravity. So that will, I mean, you can really play around with it in any way, but then you can kind of thrash around at it with your effectors and watch them spin around in space and do all kinds of crazy things. So yeah, I mean, the possibilities are endless. This is just one example, but there are lots. So yeah, that's about it, guys. I appreciate you all watching and slicing some fruit up with me on a Friday night. It's been a lot of fun. But yeah, I'll see you all next time with another tutorial and some more great ideas. So yeah, get working on that and come up with some cool stuff.